it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Winter Woods scarf. This is a really fast scarf to work up. I've crocheted in some super bulky yarn and a large crochet hook, and I chose some kind of wintry, neutral looking colors, and I did a random stripe sequence, nothing counted or anything. So this is a really fast, kind of low stress, fun project to work on. And I finished the bottom with some tassels, which are totally optional, but I really love the way they look. So let's get started. The finished scarf measures about 8 inches wide, and the scarf itself, minus the tassels, has a length of 60 inches, and each one of these tassels is about 4 inches long. Now you can change the length of your scarf simply by working more or less rows, and obviously if you leave the tassels off, it'll shorten your scarf a little bit as well. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a ruler or a tape measure is helpful. It's not necessary if you want to measure as you go along, or you can simply just put the scarf on as you work it up and see how it fits you. You'll also need a 9mm crochet hook. Now, some manufacturers will call this an M hook, some will call it an N hook. Just make sure it's a 9mm crochet hook. So for the yarn, I'll be using Lion Brand's Wool Ease Thick and Quick. I have a couple different colors here, and if you watched my Lingonberry button wrap tutorial, you'll recognize some of these colors. And the reason I chose these colors for this is because so many of you sent me messages and commented about these particular colors and how you wanted to see them in a project. So I was listening, and I'm going to use them for this project. The colors I have here are Barley, Glacier, and Fisherman, in case you're wondering and want to replicate these colors as well. Now I'm going to be using 2.5 balls of the Wool Ease Thick and Quick, and just as a note, these two are the Wool Ease Thick and Quick solids. This is the Wool Ease Thick and Quick tweeds. And I used a total of 265 yards. A full ball of this is 106 yards, so I used 2.5. Okay, and if you need to substitute yarn, just look on the back of your yarn label for a 6 super bulky. So this is a 6 on the yarn weight scale, and look for something that recommends the 9mm crochet hook as well. Okay, I'm going to start with the Glacier yarn, and we're going to go through each row of the pattern, and then I'm going to show you how to switch colors as well. I'm going to do more or less a random striping pattern. So I'm going to do a couple rows of one color, a couple rows of another color. So this makes this a great stash busting project as well. So what we need to do is put a slip knot on our hook. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up the loop, and tighten. Now, as a side note, whenever I use this hook in a video, I always have a lot of people asking where I got the hook. This is from Knitpicks, knitpicks.com. You can get this hook. Okay, so our starting chain is 14. So to make a chain, wrap yarn around hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Now some of you ask me about the starting chain being a little bit tight. If you feel like your starting chain is a little tight, you want to make it fairly loose when you start. Go up a hook size, and then just come back down to the 9mm for the rest of your project, and that'll kind of loosen your starting chain up a bit. Okay, so let's work row 1. So we're going to work in the 5th chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in this chain right here, we're going to work our first, it's sort of a double V, kind of like a split shell looking stitch. Okay, so in the 5th chain from the hook, let's work our first little shell shape. So we're going to work 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So to make a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Now work another double crochet in the same chain, then chain 2, 1 and 2, and then in that same chain work 2 more double crochet. This is a stitch that I love and I use quite often, and It's so easy with very simple stitches like the chain and the double crochet, and it yields a very beautiful chunky lace. So it's a stitch I'm a huge fan of. Okay, so what we're going to do is skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in the next chain we're going to do the same thing. Work 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So this is our first double crochet, our next double crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, and in the same chain work 2 more double crochet. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, and this is a really quick scarf pattern. We're more than halfway done our row. Okay, so next what we're going to do is skip the next 2 chains, 1, 2, and in that chain after that we're going to do the same thing. 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, then chain 2, then work 2 more double crochet all in that same chain. So 1 and 2. So once you know the double crochet, or if you already know it, this is a pretty simple chunky lace pattern. Now we still have a couple more chains left. Let me just grab a little bit more yarn. We have 3 chains left. So we're going to count 2, skip these next 2, 1, 2, and in this very last chain of our row, work just a regular double crochet. So just 1 double crochet in that last chain. Okay, so row 1 will look something like this. So our next row, we're going to stick with the blue, just so I can show you row 2, and then later on we'll switch colors. So let's move on to row 2 next. Okay, so row 2 rather, we're going to chain 3 and turn. So 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now this row is even easier than the row before it because we're going to be working into the spaces. We're not going to have to count chains for this row. So what we're going to do these same sort of fan shapes into these center spaces. These chain 2 spaces is how it's written on the Fiber Flux blog in the written pattern. So the space that we created with the chain 2 from the previous row. So what we're going to do is locate that first space in that first split V that you come to and work 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Same thing we did before. So 2 double crochet, that's 1 and 2. Now chain 2, 1, 2, and work 2 double crochet all in that same chain 2 space. Get some more yarn. My yarn ball is following me around. Okay, and then another double crochet. So 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. And you can see now that we've done 2 of them, how they stack on top of one another. So it's very easy to locate where you're supposed to be crocheting. Okay, so locate the next one, that chain 2 space, work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and then 2 more double crochet in that same space. So 1 and 2. Okay, now we have 1 more. So because there's 3 across. Locate the next one. So work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 more double crochet, all in that same chain 2 space. And to finish up the row, what we're going to do, I just want to straighten this out and show you just how these split shells are stacking up. They look lovely. Okay, so we have our turning chain space from the previous row. Now it's going to be kind of smushed against this last one because as you work into these spaces, the sides of your V's will kind of push out a little bit and open up. So it's also going to push your turning chain down a little bit. So it's going to kind of be down here. So just locate that space right there, and you're just going to work a double crochet into that turning chain space. And row 2 is complete. So to finish your scarf, you're just going to be repeating row 2 over and over and over again until your scarf is 55 inches long, which is how long I'm going to be making mine, or as long as you'd like it to be. Now, just as a side note, if you want to make your scarf longer than I'll be making mine, you might need to add some more yarn in addition to what I mentioned earlier. But all you're going to need to do is repeat row 2 over and over and over. Now this is a striped scarf, so before we continue and work on the scarf on our own, I'm going to show you how to switch colors. So we're going to do that next. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed the barley, and I really love the contrast between the tweed and the solid, and these colors are just really modern and winter. I just love them together. And I'm really glad that so many of you suggested a project with these. So thank you if you suggested these colors to be in a project. Okay, so I cut and fastened off the yarn. And now what we're going to do is join our new yarn. Now, there's lots of ways to join yarn. And if you have a preferred method, definitely at this point feel free to use the method of your choice. However, I like to cut the yarn and tie the new yarn right on. So go ahead and insert the hook into that last stitch that you worked. You can see it's that upper left, it's like a hole. So insert your hook, bring the new yarn through, and go ahead and just tie it right on. Again, if you like to join it a different way, feel free to do the way that you like best, okay? So all you're gonna do is, I'm just gonna get these tails out of the way for a minute. We're gonna learn how to weave those in later as well. So go ahead and insert your hook back into that same stitch where you tied the yarn on, bring up a loop, and now you're ready to work your next row. Again, we're going to be repeating row 2, so we'll just be repeating row 2. So I'm going to show you just the beginnings of that because I want you to see kind of how these colors are going to play together. So 1, 2, 3 chains, and then we're going to turn. Now you can weave these tails in as you go along. You can hold the tail, let me grab one of them, along the edge here and work your stitches, but for some of these lacier patterns, I find that it looks a little bit nicer if I weave the tails in myself with a tapestry needle later. But you might want to experiment a little bit and see what you like best. It certainly saves time to weave the ends in as you go along. Okay, so locate that first space and just do the same. We're just repeating row 2. I'm just showing you in the other color, just so you can see it really quick. 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. And I really love striped patterns because the colors just are so fun to see in the different stitches. So 2 double crochet in the next chain 2 space, then a chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 double crochet. Well, let's just go ahead and finish this row just so you can see how this barley looks. And the last chain 2 space that we'll be working into, 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet on that same chain 2 space. And it goes really fast, like I mentioned before, because we're not having to count anything. We're just looking for those chain 2 spaces. And then finally, the turning chain is not quite off to the side as it was before. It's sitting up a little bit better, so it's a little bit easier to see now. Just work a double crochet into that turning chain space. Okay, so all we did was repeat row 2, but I wanted you to see it in this beautiful barley color as well. So go ahead and repeat row 2 over and over and over. Now, I mentioned before, I'm just going to be doing some random stripes, just kind of whatever. Whenever I feel like changing colors, I'm just going to go ahead and change colors. It's a very low stress, easy, and fast crochet project. And I just wanted to grab my tape measure for a moment because, let me just straighten it out a little bit. You can see we're already at about 4.5 inches tall, and we've only done 3 rows. So this works up really fast. I love those chunky, fast projects. So go ahead and repeat row 2, and we'll rejoin towards the end of the scarf, and I'm going to show you how to finish off your scarf and add some little extras if you like. Okay, so I'm just working that very last stitch of the very last row. And I just kept working rows until I got the length that I wanted. And you can do this by trying it on and just seeing how it falls and how long and how many times you really want to wrap it around your neck. So what we're going to do next is with our scissors, we're just going to cut the yarn and fasten off. Now, like I mentioned before, I did a super random color striping sequence. When I was making this scarf, I simply just switched colors whenever I felt like switching colors. So it's just, there's larger sections of some colors, and then there's just a little bit of some other colors. So I really like the way it turned out. It does look random, but still the color, the palette brings it together. So what we're going to do next is we're going to weave our ends in, and then there is an optional tassel that you can add to the ends. Now you can leave your scarf as is, just like it is now, or you can add the tassels. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to show you how to make them in case that's something you'd like to do. So what we're going to do is, I have some ends here, and what we're going to do is take our tapestry needle and just give the yarn a nice twist to fit it through the eye of your needle. You'll want a larger tapestry needle to accommodate the bulkier yarn. So what we're going to do is weave the ends in. Now I have this cream color here. You want to weave this color into the cream color section. Don't go into the other color sections because it'll stick out really prominently. So go in one direction with your tail, just like this. Pull it through and then come back in the other direction to help lock that tail in a little bit. So just come back in the other direction. Grab your scissors once again and then just trim. And then you're going to be repeating this for any tails that remain. Okay, so I went ahead and wove all the ends in, and we're going to make some tassels now. If you like the look of this scarf as is, you can just leave the tassels off. It's totally up to you. So what we're going to do is, on this end, we have 3 scallops. So I'm going to put a tassel at each end, and then the nature of this stitch, because it's kind of like this split fan, where we begin our starting chain, creates sort of a straighter edge. However, at the base of each one of these scallops, there is still an opening, and we can put our tassels there. So we're going to do 3 at either end for a total of 6. So we're going to make one of them together. So I have this tweed yarn. I'm going to use this for the tassels. And what you want to do, if you've never made a tassel before, you want to cut 2 pieces of yarn. I'm going to cut, they're about 12 inches, 9 to 12 inches or so. So just cut 2 pieces of yarn, and you can set them aside for a moment. Then we're going to wrap some yarn around our hand. Now some people like to do this with cardboard. You can do that as well. I just use my hand when I make tassels. For a large tassel, you'll want to wrap it around all 4 fingers. If you want to make smaller tassels, you can use less fingers. You could use 3 of your fingers or 2 of your fingers, but we're going to use all 4 fingers for this. So what you want to do is allow a strand to hang down the front, and then you're just going to start wrapping it around your hand. Now these tassels aren't going to be massive, but the bulky yarn will make them kind of fluffy. So just start wrapping the yarn around your fingers, just like this. I went ahead and wrapped the yarn around my fingers 12 times. So when you're making your tassel, no matter how many times you wrap it around your hand, just remember that number, because you want to wrap at the same time for same number of wraps for each tassel, so your tassels look uniform. That way you don't have one that's really kind of poofy and then one that's more slim or stringy looking. Okay, so take the other end and let that hang down as well, like the beginning end, and just cut the yarn. And then what we're going to do is carefully slip your hand out, keeping the 2 ends at the bottom. And we're going to take, just hold it in your hand like a bundle. And then we're going to take our first strand, and see this top loop that we've created? You want to run the first strand through the top loop, just like that, and then just tie the yarn. Get it really nice and secure. Because you're going to be wearing this and the tassels are going to be kind of hanging down and swinging around, you want everything to be really nice and secure. Okay? So just like that, and then our tassel is ready to be tied at the top. So just take your other yarn. My tweed is sprinkling little tweed pieces everywhere. And we're going to lay that strand down on the table, just like this. And then keeping these two cut pieces, because this is how we're going to attach our tassel. So keep those at the top, and then just lay your tassel down. And see how I have, it's about an inch or so. And then just go ahead and tie the yarn, just like that. Now it's already starting to look like a tassel with the little top piece. And then just tie that really, really tightly. Now, the neat thing about tassels is that you don't have to weave in any ends, but you do have to kind of tuck them. See how this is kind of going off to the side on its own? So just grab your tapestry needle, and then what you're going to do is just kind of tuck this end under that band you just created. The other one will lay down flat. If they're both sticking up, obviously you want to do it for both of them, but I just have one that's kind of going off on its own. So I'm just going underneath that band we just created down the middle of the tassel, and you'll see the needle pop out at the bottom, and then just pull it through. Give it a little tug and everything will be concealed. Okay, so then what we're going to do is once you got everything straightened out, you might need to straighten it out a little bit. What we're going to do is take our scissors and we're going to cut all of these loops. We're not worrying about it being even yet. We're just cutting all the loops to start. So every loop that you find along the bottom here, you might have to kind of floof it a little bit. Look for all those loops. Then what you're going to do is turn your tassel upside down, and just like sort of like a haircut, you want to line everything up nice and neat at the bottom. Kind of hold it with your thumb and then just cut straight across. Now if your tassel feels a bit long, you can kind of shorten up your tassel at this point as well. Okay, then get all those crumbs out of the way. Now you can save all these yarn clippings for other projects where you might need to stuff something. Okay, and our tassel is complete. I'm just going to give it a little shake to get all of the little yarn pieces out. And your tassel, as you wear your scarf, some of these plies will kind of unravel a little bit, and that's okay. It'll kind of fluff it up. So your tassel will relax a little bit too as you wear it. So like I mentioned before, we're going to, at the bottom of one of these scallops here, we're going to just tie it right on to the bottom. And you want to get it really nice and secure. So put a couple of knots in that. I mean, you don't want to overdo it because you'll have this big kind of ugly lumpy knot, but you do want to get it nice and secure. And then these two ends here, grab your tapestry needle and then do the same thing you did before, but come from the top. Make sure you come up under that band, go inside of that band and back down at the bottom. And just pull it through, straighten everything out, and then repeat the same thing for the other one. And I love tassels. I know some people, you can kind of take them or leave them, but I love them. I think they look really cute on the bottom of something. They just add a little extra. And then the two ends that we pulled through just now, just make sure that everything is still nice and even. Okay, so you want to give a little additional haircut. Okay. So we have one tassel attached to the bottom of our scarf. We're going to add two more to this side, and then we're going to come over here and add three. And again, just at the base of those scallops as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add my other scallops, and then we'll rejoin for the finished look. So I finished adding all of the tassels. So we have 3 at each end, and now our scarf is complete. So that is how you crochet the winter wood scarf. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.